Welcome to this month's Confident English Spotlight interview. This month in July, I'm interviewing Bayan, who you'll learn much more about in just a moment. But before I start interviewing her, I want to share a little bit about what these monthly interviews are all about. If you're new to my Confident English community, the Confident English Spotlight interviews are my opportunity to shine a light or highlight someone in our community that I think is just amazing, because our community is full of inspirational, motivational people who are really successful in their jobs, people that are doing great volunteer work and making the world a better place, people who just have a soul that is very kind and generous, and people who have overcome challenges. And Bayan is one of those people for me, and so I'm really excited to interview her today. So Bayan, to get us started, would you just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and where you're from?
Thank you, Annemarie, for this lovely invitation and kind introduction.
Yes.
My name is Bayan Sharif. Bayan is Arabic for clarity. I am Jordanian. 5 years ago, I moved to Saudi Arabia with my family. And ever since, I have been a stay-at-home mom for 2 girls.
And Bayan, you have a background in pharmaceuticals. You were a pharmacist, I think.
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in pharmacy, and I worked as a health insurance advisor for 1 year. But then I had to leave because I had a bit of a difficult pregnancy. After that, we came to Saudi Arabia.
Okay. So Bayan, you just mentioned that you moved from Jordan to Saudi Arabia. And I think that is an experience that many people in our Confident English community have in common. I know I've moved to several countries, and there are so many others who have had that experience, and they understand the challenges of moving to a new country, but also some of the benefits. So talk a little bit about what it was like for you to move to a new country. What were some of the challenges that you had, and how did you overcome them?
When we first moved to Saudi Arabia, on one hand, we were happy, excited. We had all these hopes and dreams. And on the other hand, we were afraid that we uprooted the family from the city we know so well, from the family and relative. We had to a place that we really didn't know. And for a job, we don't know if my husband would be comfortable in. And basically, we faced 3 challenges when we came here. First, that we barely knew any acquaintances. And second, that we didn't know the city so well. And the third one was mine, was my challenge. I had a lot of free time on my hands. So for the first challenge, just put a gas on your tank and move your car. Google the places on the city and find where to shop, where to go for entertainment. For the second problem, I got to know my neighbors first. They introduced me to their relatives and friends, and our base of friends grew. We reconnected with old friends that we knew lived in Riyadh before us. And for the third problem, the free time, I think I frowned for 2 years. Because I had all these dreams, and for my job, I wanted to accomplish more in work-wise. And because of the rules here and because of my husband's work, I had to stay home. 2 years later, I decided that I have looked at the problem in the wrong way. I should look at it as a blessing that I had a free time now to learn what I want, to read as much as I want. Making a warm, happy home isn't such an easy task. Why should I take it for granted? When you change the way you look at things and you make peace with anything, when anything that bothers you, then when you start to, it is when you start to do some more to discover what you really want to do in life.
Right. I love that attitude. I think that's one of the reasons I was so excited to interview you, because I love that
Thank you.
perspective of changing your mindset, that it's not a terrible thing to have all that free time, but it gave you the opportunity to do so many things that you maybe always wanted to do. Like, I know you took a gardening class, you
Yeah.
took a photography class, you started learning all these new things, which is really cool. So I think that's a great perspective. And I like that you said with the first challenge, you didn't know the city. So the response is, the solution, put gas in your car and start driving and find your places. I love that. So in this process of moving and going through those challenges, what is one thing that surprised you about yourself, or maybe something that you enjoyed about the moving process?
Moving to Riyadh, it taught me to be the rock that I needed, to be my own rock, to rely more on myself, to do things my own way, and to have more positive view on the situation on hand. Not everything is as bad as you think, and the glass is always half full too.
I love that. Great idiom. That's a perfect idiom for that situation. One of the things I also know about you is that you absolutely love reading. In May, actually, the May Spotlight, I interviewed Olga, who is from Ukraine, and she's also a very avid reader. So tell me about your love of reading and your love of books. Because you don't like reading on digital content. You don't like
No.
ebooks. You
I
like
really
real
don't like
books.
it, and I tried it for a while. It's just not my cup of tea. And why I love books, I would say it's just in my blood. I was born like that.
Yeah.
Ever since I can remember, when I get upset, sad, I would go to a library, feel the books, smell the books. The older the library, the better. The dustier, the better. I guess I see books as windows. You can open it whenever you want to look at a new place in the world, or to listen to a new teacher.
Do you remember the first book that you read in English?
Oh, Harry Potter.
Good. There's a lot of people, I think that was their first book in English. Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was the first book. It was really hard to read because my vocabulary library, I didn't have one. So every page I would have 10 to 20 words I didn't know the meaning of. And it's hard to know the meaning through context because I didn't know so many words.
Right. That's a really common difficulty that people have the first time they're going to read a book in any language. For me, the first time I read a book in French. What helped you to stay motivated? Because sometimes when there's so many new words, you want to just give up. You want to stop reading and say, oh, this is too hard. So what encouraged you to keep reading and to keep growing in your love of reading, not only in Arabic, but in English as well?
For the Harry books, it was that I loved the movie so much, and the Arabic version of the book was so bad, in my opinion.
Okay.
There were a lot of things that were lost in translation. So I decided back then, that's it, I will start reading in English.
Wow. And then, do you have a book that you would recommend? If somebody wanted to try reading a book in English for the very first time, what would you recommend?
Well, I have a piece of advice that I wish I heard before when I started reading. Start reading from the youth section. Don't go to the adult section. Start with the youth section. The vocabulary is much easier. And for the second part, read something that you really love. So when you're feeling down that I didn't know this word, I didn't know what the author meant, it will motivate you to keep reading.
Absolutely.
If you read something that you love.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your life using English, and how do you use English in your life, and how have you overcome some of the the challenges of speaking in English?
Before we moved to Saudi Arabia, I didn't really use so much English, so I became rusty.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since we moved here, there's a lot of non-Arab expats you can only communicate with through English. I had to work a little bit on my conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I use English mostly when I go to hospital, speaking to doctors or nurses. And ever since I enrolled my daughter into international school, I had to speak with the native teachers there. Unfortunately, I wasn't comfortable. I tried to speak as little as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I used to prepare to prepare what I want to say. I wrote down my thoughts, but life happens, and something unexpected will occur in the conversation, and I won't have the enough active vocabulary to reply to. Maybe I want to say something, but then I forget because I am too nervous, too focused on how to pronounce the words right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Speaking to my daughter teacher, I used to stick to one question and just repeat it.
Uh-huh.
I think one time at a hospital, I was so nervous speaking to a doctor, I forgot to give her one important piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
And she, after looking at my test, told me, there's something funny about your test. We're going to have a brain MRI. When she explained why, I said, oh yeah, I forgot to say 1, 2, 3. This is what I forgot to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it explained the funny things in the test.
Right, right. So do you feel that you've overcome some of that nervousness?
Of course, I overcome. I'm here speaking.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I started looking for online courses for English, but or maybe English school, but none of them suited me because they usually focus in vocabulary and grammar, some things that I can do on my own.
Mm-hmm.
One girl I followed on Snapchat mentioned that there were English speaking online courses,
Mm-hmm.
but the website that she gave, it wasn't a professional English teacher.
Mm.
It was like a normal guy who had a lot of free time on his hand too.
Uh-huh.
So he decided to speak to someone else on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted something more professional, something to focus more on my needs. So luckily, a few months later, I found Fluency School.
Yay.
And I followed you. Yes, I followed you on Facebook. I saw the videos that you make on YouTube. I liked how friendly you seemed, how easy the information seemed when you give them, when you explain them. And when you announced the Fluency School that has opened, I registered.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I'm so glad that you did.
Thank you. I am really glad that I did. It gave me my confidence back.
Good.
And you gave me an insight on how good I was in English, or on my strengths and my weaknesses.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So my last question for you, there will be a lot of people who will watch this interview and they might think, oh my gosh, how did she do that? I could never do an interview in English. And they just feel really discouraged. They feel like they want to give up, that it's just not possible to stop feeling nervous in English. So what advice would you have for them?
Well, I advise them that stop being afraid, stop feeling nervous. Fear will never get you anywhere in life. Find the courage to become the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to become good in English, it won't magically happen overnight. You need to put some hard work to that, and you need to find help when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I did find help. It was Fluency School, and thanks to you, Annemarie, I had my confidence back, and now I know where to focus on my studies.
Yeah, great. I love that. I really love making the decision or finding the courage to be the best version of yourself. And sometimes that means making different choices or doing things a little bit differently so that you can accomplish what you want in life. I really like that advice. Well, Bayan, thank you so much for sharing a little part of your life and your thoughts with us. Thank you for being courageous and sharing your
Thank
best
you for
version of
inviting
yourself.
me and giving me this opportunity to speak.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Annemarie.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.